How's it going, everybody? Welcome to week 3 of Catholic Home Economics. I'm Dave Gordon. I'm here with my wife, Rebecca. How you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, everybody.
Um, this week is a fun week. We enjoy doing this one. I know there's a lot that people can get from this. We're going to be going over just essentially a model day in the life of like a well-structured, well-ordered Catholic household. Um, to get people kind of familiar with if they're expecting to go into marriage, what you can kind of aspire to. And if people do have marriage or they're already in the covenant of marriage, exactly where they can trim the fat and where they can maybe reformulate their day to be more efficient and to do their job as a spouse and parent better even. And so we have some ideas. Obviously, a model day is not going to be one size fits all. It's going to be kind of a suggestion that you can take it and tailor it as needed to conform to your schedule as a family, your lifestyle as a family. Obviously, each family is different. It's going to depend in large part upon the hours of the breadwinner, and upon even the schedule of the kids to a certain extent, schooling, how you're doing your schooling, involvement with how the mother wants to do certain things with her day, how she's going to do school. So there's nips and tucks that everybody can make to formulate, what is essentially this model or ideal day to their own lifestyle. And there are going to be salutary variations to this to make it conform to what works best for your family. But there is, that said, there is an efficient way to run a household. There are certain things that are going to be shared across the boards that every household that is doing things right is going to have in common. So, you can apply some of these generalities to your specific situation. So that said, I'm going to screen share and pull up the lecture notes. Okay, so we already talked about some of this just in our brief introduction. No two families are alike in all of the specifics of their day, in all of the parts of what they do that make up their identity. And there's going to be unique things. So again, this isn't one size fits all. As we said, a father's work schedule is going to determine a lot of this, because what is non-negotiable is that families spend time together. So if the father works a regular 8 to 5, then that's one thing. But a lot of people have to do night shifts. A lot of people's dads are policemen or firemen who have to be at work at odd hours. So a non-negotiable is spending family time together and living the domestic life together. So it's going to look different in each case. Especially, and this is something, our oldest daughter is almost 11 now. Your children's age is going to make up a lot of the difference. It's going to account for a lot of the differences in schedule. Obviously, a family with, 3 kids under 4 is going to be different from a family that has mainly, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Their schedule, their needs are going to determine your schedule. Homeschool, go to school, those are big differences.
I was just going to say that a lot of these, like how we're talking about, there's going to be a lot of variations between how the day looks for different families. The reason we did our first couple of classes first is because we wanted to establish those principles that kind of will never change. And so you can kind of base your day on those principles and apply those practically. So what we've done here is give kind of an example of that and what to aspire to. And as Dave's saying, it's not going to be a one size fits all kind of thing.
Sure. Okay. That said, I think we've prefaced it enough. Let's go into the actual meat of it. Okay, so morning. And this is a time where Rebecca really shines. When a lot of the time as the father is getting up for his day, the mother will be preparing and really being in that helpmate role to help send the father off, the kids off to school, if they go out to school, so that the day can be successful. So, the father gets up and shaves, and he takes care of himself, gets ready, throws on like a tie and a jacket or sport coat. And during that time, a lot of times it's really helpful that Rebecca will be taking care of breakfast or getting things ready. Sometimes she'll even help me with the things I need to bring to work. She'll like have my computer bag set up and ready to go for me, which is really helpful in the morning. But I guess I'm jumping the gun a little bit. But you do help quite a bit. It's a huge thing. I think people take for granted that a wife and a mother is really the role that she plays in having the family have a successful day by virtue of some of these jobs that a lot of people are going to almost look at as just menial, which they're not. It takes a lot of discipline to get up in the morning and to do these things. And so it's just utmost respect goes to that. But say it's 6:30 a.m., mother and father wake up, get ready for the day, mother starts breakfast. Any thoughts on that? Or
yeah, just when you're getting up and getting ready for the day, it's a time of really kind of putting your priorities right for the day. So you're starting with hopefully prayer and things like that. Then getting yourself ready and prepared to take care of your family. So having the right mindset in the morning is really important, because it kind of, your day will follow that. So starting things out right, it's an important time.
Yeah. So there's that kind of 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes where, everyone's kind of just getting ready. The mother's preparing as, say, the father is getting ready to go out for work. 7:15, 45 minutes. Mother wakes up children, serves breakfast to her family morning prayers. One consistent thing that we're going to go back to in this lecture particularly is that a lot of people go through their day and it's a task-oriented day, and that's the wrong thing to do. It's a wrong way to think of things, and it's a recipe for getting burnt out in your vocation. Tasks are not just about the tasks. Tasks are about the really educating your kids, loving your spouse. When you're doing these things, you're showing love to them, and you're developing those relationships. And especially parents, the prime end of marriage is the begetting and educating of offspring. So the fact is, every part of your day is didactic. Every part of your day is imparting knowledge to your kids. It's not just the times when you sit down to homeschool them that you're imparting knowledge to them. You are forming them as people with every single thing you do. That means if they're seeing you making breakfast, if you're enjoying breakfast together, that is all part of their lifestyle. In terms of family life, the journey is the destination. It's people are trying to always get through tasks, get to the next thing. They simply see breakfast as a means to an end, but it's not. That's a very kind of animalian and base perspective to think breakfast is just a means to an end of like nourishment. No, breakfast is really, it's an end in and of itself, because it is developing your kids. It's in a way catechizing your kids. It's enjoying community. And that's really what we're called to as a human race, as the brotherhood, the fellowship of the human race, is to be like the mystical body of Christ and to live in communion with first God, but also with each other. Man is a corporate being. Man's he's not just meant for solitary life. So these things are bigger than what they actually are. Breakfast is not just breakfast. It's about developing love in the family, and it's about educating your kids, and everything should be treated as such, not just as a standalone act that's this rote, repetitious event that is ordered towards like nourishment or what have you.
And that's something that you kind of have to remind yourself a lot of, because you can get bogged down and be like, okay, I've got to get through making breakfast. I've got to get through changing diapers. I've got to get through all these different tasks that you have throughout your day. Like, okay, I just got to get through these. They kind of become trials. And what you need to do when you're feeling like that is just reorient your perspective and be like, okay, no, when I'm doing this for my child, they're seeing how I'm acting, how I'm living out my Christian values, and I'm imparting love and knowledge to them whether I know it or not. So it kind of, realizing that calls you to the higher standard that you want to set your sight on.
Right. I mean, we've all experienced maybe a household or a family where like people are grumpy going through their tasks, and each thing is not really infused with love. You can tell there's resent or scorn or contempt behind these things. Like I resent having to change a diaper, and kids, they pick up on that. They receive that through osmosis. They absorb that. And if that atmosphere is present in your household, then you're going to grow up to have, a household that has been groomed to not, love one another the proper way, and ultimately to drift apart in the later years. So that plagues a lot of families, and it's particularly because of, I guess, this utilitarian mindset where acts are things to get through. So you don't want that to be in your household. So remember, each task in and of itself is important and is a moment for growing in your relationship with somebody else, but forming them as well. Okay. 7:45 a.m. Father leaves for work. Um, kids have a little bit of free time after that. The mother can have some relaxation time, read newspaper, watch the news. Those are important things. Those shouldn't be diminished. First of all, because you don't just want to go through your day so busy that you can never have any time to enjoy anything. You do have to, especially as a parent, especially as somebody who's busy, kind of take the enjoy the simple pleasures in life and get some relief from the grind of your day-to-day burdens by having like 15 minutes to read a paper or watch the news. Furthermore, I think it's important that, like Rebecca, a wife and mother, have some downtime to, first of all, keep in touch with world events, because that gives you something to talk about at the table. You shouldn't just be talking about the weather at the table at night, or even just your day, which is fine. Obviously, that's a good thing to talk about. You should also be talking about things that are intellectual. So you're forming your kids and showing them like how to think critically about world events and to apply your faith to world events. It's not just teaching them the book knowledge in class. It's also teaching them how to apply that. And that happens over 18 years. It doesn't just happen over 2 years. People always are like, why didn't my kids grow up and fall away? I taught them the Baltimore Catechism and they could repeat it to me word for word. It's like, yeah, but did you apply it to them? Did you show them how it works in practice? Or is it just in this ethereal conceptual world, whereas your day-to-day life and lived experience is totally different and they have no synitisis, they're getting all that application of the moral law to the facts. That's important. But it's also important because mothers are so busy during the day. It's important they have a few minutes to relax and they grab a few minutes to recreate and to think about things throughout the day that aren't just like the next diaper to change or what needs to be done around the house. So it's also important for just keeping your sanity that you grab 15 minutes here or there when you actually can afford to grab it, because a lot of times during the day, things come up in the household where you can't.
Yeah. And I will say, we've given here in this model of the day kind of a 2-hour time span of from when mother and father wake up to when, the kids and are finally getting ready for the day. I will say that even now, like we've had to kind of condense that time as the kids have gotten older. We don't have, when you have more of a young family, maybe you have a little bit more of that downtime, that leisure time where you can kind of spread out those things in the morning, or it also depends on your schedule and when you want to spend time as a family and things like that. But the if you're starting out your family, you'll recognize that as you have more children, as they're getting into more in-depth schooling and things of that nature, your time will become so precious, and you might have to condense some of these things a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. You have to be smart with time, as especially having more kids and later in the family life. Like, we have 6 kids. So what we did when we had 3 kids simply has to evolve a little bit to when you have 6 kids, and you have to really make sure to be efficient and to not cut corners, but to do things in a way that it's smart. Yeah. Okay. So kids get ready for the day, 8:30 a.m. Do morning chores, make beds, clean up breakfast table, dishes, laundry, feeding pets. These are all things, again, you're kind of setting the table, so to speak, to have a good day. And you're also, teaching and imparting responsibility and beginning an orderly household, which is important. All of these things are teaching moments. Kids are learning responsibility. That teaches them, like, you're forming their character, you're forming virtue. It's not done over the course of 2 years in like high school morals class. It's done over the course of a lifetime. And these habits, once you pick up bad habits, it's really hard to break. You're also teaching them to appreciate order within the household, because you're putting it right. Every morning you wake up, you make dirty dishes, your bed is ruffled, out of order from the night before. That gets put back in order. And when things are in order, then you are in a place where you can succeed each day. Cleaning up the breakfast table, these are also small chores that little kids can do. Little kids can't always help with things like the dishes, although we start ours, maybe 6 or 7 on the dishes. But they can help clean up the table. So you're, again, doing this role as parent / educator of your kids.
Yeah, and our kids, some of the older kids now, they have their kind of set morning chores. But when you have younger kids and they're just learning, they're watching you mainly do the morning chores as a mother. That's kind of think of that as a teaching and bonding moment. Even if your child is 2 years old or 4 years old or whatever, you can either be spending that time doing your chore and bonding with them, or you can be spending that time teaching them, like showing them, how you're making the bed, how you're cleaning up the breakfast table, even why it's important to do these things. Getting things ready for maybe the father. If you're preparing something for him as you're cleaning up breakfast, for him to get ready for work or whatever, the child will see what you're doing and think, well, she's being a helpmate to dad. And those kinds of things are important for children to see, and they might not be things that you recognize are important right now, but they really do shape their mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so 9:30 a.m. getting to school time. If you're going to homeschool, which obviously is our model, some people are going to have kids that go out for the day, but we're anticipating, and not everybody is blessed with the ability to have like many kids or kids at all. But kind of tailoring this towards a lot of the people in the audience who are going to probably be gravitating towards having a larger Catholic family. Even if you don't have kids that go, if you do have kids to go out to school, then you'll track well with this schedule. If your kids go out to school, you might have younger kids, and then you can kind of take what we're saying about homeschool and apply it to just bringing up kids in the household, and not necessarily formally schooling them, but being with them, interacting with them, which is really, that's preschool in a healthy way. Well, a lot of preschool is glorified daycare. Obviously, it's not good for kids to do. It's something that, as obviously women's liberation has become a thing, people have been told to send their kids to preschool because it gets them out of the house, and obviously mom can get back to work faster. But the true form of preschool is reading stories with your kids and interacting with your kids in the home. So even if you have younger kids and you're not sending them out, what we're saying here has import to you. Because take it as a model for being with the kids, period. So 9:30 a.m. start school, start with prayer, obviously, as you would even at Catholic school. But Bible story, catechism, these are all things where you can kind of get kids in the zone. First of all, you're praying with them and preparing like the soil. You're kind of making the soil fecund for these lessons to take. And you're just really starting your day with a good prayer anyway, so you can dedicate it to God, so you can offer it up to God. But beyond that, you start, it works well to start a day of schooling with the religious lessons, with a Bible story, because it's a nice way for them to settle in and get something that has very high information value also, but is going to rope them in and be a transition between whatever they were doing before, watching cartoons or doing their chores, and actually being serious about school. It's good to grab especially younger kids attention with a story, like a Bible story, as that bridges the gap between recreating and in school. So we always start right with, you start your lessons with Bible story.
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably one of our kids' favorite times during school. They love the Bible story. And it's a great teaching time because obviously Bible stories are meant to teach us things. So when you're reading a Bible story to your kids, it's not just the reading of the story, it's the analyzing it. What does it mean? How, what is important? What is Jesus trying to teach us here? How do we apply that to our lives? Those are all teaching moments that come from setting the schedule of having the Bible story.
Right. And then just general school lessons, whatever you find is going to work for you. Obviously, there's an order. We're going to get into homeschool and the particulars of it later in the class. That's not the focal point in this lesson of the model day. But you will find that there's an order that you like to do your school lessons in. You'll see when your kids are paying attention, so they need to have the things that absorb most of their attention and concentration at certain parts of the day. But again, that's going to be up to you and your watchful eye as a parent. 11:30 a.m. lunchtime recreation. So we always give our kids a lunch and recess. It's important. First of all, again, lunch is about more than just lunch. It's about enjoyment and fraternity and fellowship, and talking and communing with each other. But also, it's a time for recreating, and recreating is obviously essential for man. It's not something, it's why we have the Sunday rest. It's an obligation to have Sunday rest, because you do need to refresh yourself. And this goes also at the miniature scale, like in the middle of the day. You have to have breaks. No one can grind out a 10-hour shift without having at least like a 15-minute break to recuperate. You have to be able to recreate and in order to succeed at what you do that are your duties. So it is important that kids get a lunch, get a recess, so that they can do what their duties are during the day, to greater success and with greater efficacy.
Yeah, and we put as an example here, it might be a good time to spend a one-on-one time with a child, helping you make lunch. You'll find as the more children you have, the harder it is to find time to spend one-on-one. And so doing those small things, whether it's preparing a meal or whether it's if you have to take care of an animal or whatever kind of small duties you have throughout the day, if you can do it with one of your children, that you're going to be spending time with them and also getting a duty done.
And one of the issues with having a big household, and a lot of times where you do see, strangely enough, kids with faithful upbringings falling away later in life, is just maybe they didn't feel enough love. It doesn't matter how much you teach your kids, doesn't matter how well you instruct them. If that nucleus of family love is missing, your family is destined to fail. Your kids are destined, not destined, but they're much more likely to fall away, because even though they've heard all the right things, they've seen that it doesn't lead to anything admirable in their view. And they know that something was missing. We're called to be loved. That's our ultimate destiny. Destiny is the Trinitarian embrace and the beatific vision. And family life is a precursor for that. And if that's lacking, it actually will mess up your kids' relationship with God. Moms and dads are the model for God for their kids. So that relationship needs to be fostered and cared for. So you have to spend individual time with your kids. It's not enough to see them as kids in the aggregate. You have to see them as individuals, and you have to make time with each one of them as an individual. And this is where, I think Pope Francis took a lot of heat for it, but he said, you don't have to breed like rabbits. And I think people took him out of context a lot, but it's never been the church's teaching that you have to have as many kids as absolutely possible. You want to do it in such a way that you are able to develop a relationship and a loving bond with each of your kids, obviously without recurring to any means that are disordered or intrinsically disordered. So obviously a large Catholic family is always a good thing, but you need to make sure that you as a parent are available to spend time with each one of your kids, not just having 25 kids that you can't see or develop relationships with. That in and of itself is just creating maybe souls that will feel unloved and fall away, although that's not necessarily the case, obviously. And again, it's an ideal to have a large family.
And while it's important to have a schedule, some families struggle with that, not keeping to a schedule enough. Also, you don't want to be too rigid with your schedule. If you're too rigid about getting things done at a proper time, you might miss the things that are actually more important to your children, to your family. If something's, for example, if a child is really struggling with a certain discipline issue, you might feel like, okay, I'm just not going to deal with it right now because I have to get something else done. That's actually, the dishes can wait. Your child's upbringing in their discipline is more important in that instance than getting dishes done. So it's hard sometimes to find that balance because you don't want to live in a dirty house, but you also have to recognize that if you let your kids slide with discipline issues, or even just if a child's coming to you with some problem that they're having, even talking about why is something wrong? Why is something right? They have important questions. If you dismiss that, that's not, setting the priorities where they should.
Right. The personal should trump the mechanical in most cases. Now, that doesn't mean you can have no discipline and always be looking after, minutia that come up, or kids are going to want to talk about things and be off schedule because it's more fun than keeping to a disciplined schedule. At the same time, all things equal, the personal will trump just going through the black and white of your day, the black letter law of your day. There are going to have to be exceptions, and this is why prudence is most important in family life, because you're going to have to see where exceptions can be made and need to be made for the good of the family. So 11:30, it'll probably be 12 or so, 11:45, 12. Say prayers, eat lunch together. We got to keep moving, otherwise we're never going to get through all the notes. 12:30, clean up after lunch. There's going to be a mess made. We have 6 kids, so there is a daily spill. At least one child spills something every meal. And you're going to have to clean up. It's no small task, no mean feat. That's a thing. So budget some time. Clean table, dishes, sweep. That's obviously the kids will start helping with that. people start their kids at chores way too late generally. People wait till their kids are 12 to have them start chores, which is, I think ridiculous. You should be starting chores as soon as you are able to do so within reason. And obviously chores should be tailored to the state of development of each kid. You don't want, your 7-year-old working 4 hours daily at chores. That's too much. You want it to be reasonable towards their stage of development. At the same time, most people's bar is way too low for what kids can actually handle. And so they would think it unreasonable if a 7-year-old had an hour and a half of chores daily, which that's not unreasonable at all.
And it's funny because, a lot of kids complain about chores, but a lot of kids also desire to do chores. Our 5-year-old son's always asking me, when can I do chores? When can I do? Well, sure. But he wants to learn. He'll ask his sisters, oh, can you show me how to fold, laundry or whatnot. It's like they want to pitch in. They want to help with the family. And that's not always going to be the case. Obviously, chores are not fun all the time. My daughters always said they're so excited to learn how to do the dishes, but once they actually started doing the dishes, they just never wanted to do them again. So they want to help out, but then when it does become kind of burdensome, the chores that they thought would be kind of more desirable, it's a lesson in self-discipline. Then it's a lesson in hard work and being orderly and being neat and clean. Those are all lessons that go into giving your kids chores to do.
Yeah. So clean up after lunch, get things ready for the basically afternoon session or whatever you're going to call it for a homeschooler. Again, if you're not homeschooling, for just those things that you are going to do that are essentially schooling, that are essentially preschooling for your kids that are at home. It really is a form of school. So getting ready for the afternoon session. School time, 1 p.m., get back to what it is that you were doing. So whether it's interacting with your kids, teaching them a game, for younger kids, reading with them, being with them, playing with them, just spending time on the floor, which all have, of course, educational and bonding value. Get into that. Obviously, we have 4 kids that are doing school now, so we're doing formal lessons in the afternoon session or afternoon time slot. And a lot of that, you have your afternoon lessons, but then after maybe a couple hours of that, on a given day. Now, some days where you need to do things, kids are going to have alone work and be working on problems and workbook stuff. You don't want to lean on that too much. But, if you do your lessons, then afternoon's a good time for grading. So, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 2:30, that's about nap time. That's about the time when toddlers are getting grumpy and fussy and are ready to take their nap. So, I think this is really important. All these times where it's like a mini goodbye, whether it's bedtime or nap time, they're important, as there's obviously not finality to it, but it's like a pause in the day, and it's a time when kids are going to be really reflecting on what's happened before. So you want this to be a pleasant time for them. A nice story that's teaching them. Kids that are read to obviously develop much faster in language skills, and they grow a bigger vocabulary, and it teaches them to love reading and teaches them to love knowledge. In addition to what underlies this all is the time spent together. So reading them a story.
Yeah. And especially for younger kids, I read our younger kids a story at this time. The older kids, we've done the Bible story, and they have their own books that they're reading. It's really important to spend time with your younger kids, because their development is a lot different, at a different pace than the older kids. They need, for story time, they might need you to read in a different way than you would read to a 10-year-old. They might have questions or point out funny things. You might ask them questions about what they see in the pictures. These are all different ways of teaching, catering to the age that your children are.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. So big educational value. It's totally underdone. And a lot of teachers will talk about this. As a matter of fact, it's actually called the mommy wars in the academic literature. A lot of teachers talk about how they can tell what kids were, their moms stayed in the house and were with them and had time to do these things that we're talking about right now versus which kids were sent out to like preschool or daycare, because there is a huge gap in where they're at in terms of social behavior and language skills. So this is a well-known phenomenon in the mommy wars, where it really does show. You are teaching your kids when you read to them, when you interact with them. All of that is helping to teach them, um, you know, basic life skills and to develop their brain. When their brains have high plasticity at a young age, you're actually forming who they are and what their tendencies are going to be later in life. Okay, so read a story, put your kids down for a nap, make it pleasant. Make it something where they're going to drift off to a warm, pleasant sleep. And everybody knows what that's like to be a kid in bed and to feel cozy and protected and loved. It's one of those feelings that money can't buy. That if you don't have it, I feel bad for you, because some of those are the most formative times that I can remember in my life. So this is a good time for your other kids to recreate quietly, older kids to do quiet schoolwork. Um, you know, important, again, as we said, to recreate, and your older kids, yeah, obviously getting through their schoolwork is mandatory, and it's something they need to do. And you're always up against the clock. Family life is busy. So, good time when the little kids are away. If you are homeschooling, they're not going to be distracting your older kids. They can really be doing things that are high concentration activities and high concentration schoolwork. It's also a good time for mother to recreate or nap or make calls, or do just things that crop up that
Sure.
you have to do.
Right. Yeah. Kind of reassessing what needs to be done during the day. I will say that as a younger mom, this is a great time to relax and to take naps if you can, or just to have that relaxation time when your young children are napping. I remember just feeling the need for just some sleep, or some, because when you do have babies or little kids, a lot of times mothers will have to get up in the middle of the night, and things pop up that kind of disturb the order of the day, because they need your attention, and a lot of those things can be at random times. So I remember just needing that nap time when your kids are down for a nap. It's like, okay, I get a little bit of a breath. I get a little bit of time to just relax.
Yeah.
Now that we have more kids and older kids, I don't find that I have the time to nap anymore. But it is a good time to be able to reassess, do things that you need to kind of make up time for, things like that.
Well, yeah, and it's important that moms get naps. This is where kind of Providence has arranged things in a certain way. It's a lot of these men who have babies, and then it's like a feminist household, and some of these feminist ideals have taken root, and like the workload is split evenly so that everyone's trying to do all jobs equally. Like the dads are getting up in the middle of the night. The dads who have careers are getting up in the middle of the night to like feed a baby. It's like, I don't have mammary glands. Like that's not something I can do. And I have to wake up for work and grind out a 9-hour day and be productive at work so that I can, hopefully move up and advance in my career and do my part as breadwinner. I can't be getting up in the middle of the night. That's on you. At the same time, here's where it's fair. Like I can't take a nap in the middle of the day. That's not something that I'm able to do as a father, because there's no like nap cubby at an office. So mothers, because they do have more interrupted sleep often in the middle of the night, and they do have to tend to these things. If a child wakes up, a lot of that will be the mother who has to go tend to the kid who's had a nightmare or who wets the bed or something like that. and the father will get the sleep. He'll make up this, he'll get extra sleep at that time, whereas the mother can nap during the day, and she should, and she shouldn't be shamed for it or feel bad for it. So these things are providential. And you'll know what to do. So many people fight what their instincts are, what the voice inside them tells them to do, and it's the opposite. Like you have, and obviously the passions are disordered after the fall, or they can be, but they're not completely disordered. So when you have what is a well-ordered passion or a well-ordered desire, you should not fight it. You should go, you should allow it to guide you, because these things are things that are given to you to help you to know truth and to succeed in your vocation in life. So many people are in the habit of fighting certain impulses that are not in any way evil or disordered impulses, and that's not good. If you have even a need for sleep during the day as a mom, and you can grab 20-minute nap, 30-minute cat nap here or there, you should, because there's a reason you're feeling that by the actual structure and order of your household. Okay, so that said, you have this time in the afternoon to do certain things, to catch up with like your dad, your sisters, your what have you, make a call, yada yada, pay bills, sure. That sort of thing. The 3:30 p.m. non-routine chores. We tackle this later on in the course too, like in terms of how to keep an orderly house. But try and do one non-routine chore per day. Otherwise, you're just managing decay. If you're only doing a neat set of chores, then you'll find that like the top of your picture frames, after 2 years is coated in 2 inches of dust or something like that. The way to keep an orderly house is to do like, something that is not part of your quotidian daily chores every day. That way, these little weird tasks are not building up.
Right. And like you said, we'll get into this kind of stuff in a later class because there's so much to talk about how to keep a house orderly. But, examples are cleaning out closets, or cleaning the oven, or, things like that, things of that nature, so that you can't get to every single day, not like dishes or sweeping or laundry.
Yeah.
Basics.
Okay. Older children can do some chores. I think we've talked about that ad nauseum. 4 p.m. ish, start dinner.
Depends on what you're making for dinner, right? So some meals might take, a 5-hour preparation. And then you're having to start it early and maybe work on it later if it's cooking for a little while or whatnot. Some dinners might take only 1 hour. It kind of depends on what you're making, but we kind of gave a 2-hour window here for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good average. Meals have gotten really perfunctory. I know we've spoken about this earlier on, where it's like, well, how can you make the quickest meal for your family? Cooking in 15 minutes. Like, no, meals are an event. They're a focal point of the family evening together. It's a time where you are going to get to spend together talking and developing as people, growing in love, growing in relationship, and teaching and learning. So they're not something that's supposed to be just glossed over, like the 15-minute chicken and rice stir fry that's overly healthy. I mean, obviously health is good, but like what people are lacking in genuine like care and attention to detail and attention to like flavor in a meal, they're making up for and making things like overly healthy. It's like, fine, I'll have a little more cholesterol, but can we have a meal that is more of an event and that tastes good, and then I'll just like go run or something afterwards. Not everything has to be overly functional, and that's a mistake you see being made today, is overly functional, artless, flavorless, bland, insipid meals, and that's not a good thing. Not everything is about efficiency, because again, the journey in family life is the destination. It's the time you're spending together. So if you're making only 15-minute meals and you're not doing it with your kids, and especially daughters aren't learning to cook with you, then you're not passing on those skills to them, and they're going to be making 15-minute meals for their family. And that's not to say that there's anything inherently wrong with that. Like some nights you have to have a 15-minute meal, but it shouldn't be the usual. Dinner time is important. The reason there's been a lesser emphasis on it and it's been diminished is precisely because now you have two parents working with the rise of the cancer of feminism, and they have to say that it's not important. Otherwise, you would have to say, well, since you're not getting these meals together, there's no time to cook these meals, that's a failure. And that's not how it works. People don't like to admit that an ideology that they've constructed their life around is a failure and that it's toxic. So now meals have been diminished. But like Pope Francis says, like the family who watches TV while they eat is not a real family. That so much, and this is common among people, especially like Christian writers of home economics. They talk about the importance of dinner. And so it's not something to be skimped on. It is something to be given more attention than probably your friends, relatives, neighbors are doing. Um, yeah.
And we get into this more too about the cooking and the dinner time stuff. But I will say that, taking the time as a mother, as a wife, to prepare a good meal for your family where it looks nice and it tastes good, it's going to make your family want to be at the dinner table. It's appealing to them, and then it will foster good conversation, and things like that. It also shows a mother's love. Obviously, we've talked about how time is precious. If you're giving time to cooking a good meal for your family, it shows that you care for their nourishment, for their enjoyment of the meal. They might not recognize it at the time, but certainly when they grow up to be adults, they'll look back and think fondly of the meals that were prepared by their mom. I know I do. I know I think back and remember specific meals that my mom made, and it brings, a feeling of love for my mom because I recognize her love for me and our family in wanting to prepare nice meals for us.
Sure. And do you want to hit that other part too? Because it's something, obviously it's more it's not in my wheelhouse at all. It's up your alley. It's something you have to grapple with. But Jen, what extra time after 4?
After 4, sure. And we were talking about cooking with your kids. Obviously, that's a good thing to do. Let's see. Yeah, so extra time, spend it doing things you would have liked to have done before your husband gets home. This is especially if, a lot of husbands, are working outside the home, but a lot nowadays might not be. But even
some days I'm obviously,
sure,
a lot of days I'm at home, the days I'm writing, and I don't have to go into studio for any reason. So
right. But this time before kind of your husband is off of work, it's a time to prepare for the evening when the family can be all together. It's a time to greet your husband when he gets home, to welcome him back to, his own little castle there. So you want to freshen yourself up, freshen up the house. I love the episode, and I love Lucy, where there's kind of a scene where a woman is in the middle of her day and Lucy comes and calls on her without any warning, and it shows her just all this stuff is all out in her house. She's got like ironing out, clothes out, baby stuff out, all this stuff, and she's hurrying to put all of it away right then. And that's kind of like how I feel at the end of the day here, is like, okay, let's get everything put away in its proper spot. Let's all look our best and get ready to have just a relaxing time in the evening, and when my husband gets home.
And if the house isn't in shambles from the kids doing their thing and whatnot, and playing throughout the day, or just whatever goes into like deconstructing the home during the day, then you also would have some time to like have the TV on, or do something, the relaxing, work in the garden, read.
Sure.
Yeah. 5:15, father gets home. You should have time to talk as a family, talk as a couple, among each other. Father will be able to go out with the kids, throw the football, like play a game of basketball. something like that. If anything has come up that needs discussion, any disciplinary things during the day, obviously that can take place right then. Once the dad gets home and kind of, unloads his stuff, throws the old like briefcase or computer case down. And you'll have some time to do things like that, play before dinner or discuss things before dinner, or to discuss things as a couple. 6 p.m. dinner time, say your family prayers before dinner. You have time to talk, socialize. We've talked about that quite a bit. Using the meal as a time to unpack the day's events, unpack the news of the day, apply, the Catholic faith to the news, and develop the kids' sense of politics and civics. That's important to do at the table. How are you to think of world events, that way the kid doesn't grow up to be, to go to college and get brainwashed by progressive professors. That's how that happens. Not enough mealtime talk. 7 p.m. after dinner, clean up, dishes, table, kitchen. This is when I or a father would take time to really relax. Kids go off to do the chores. The mother will generally, you'll go off and bathe the younger kids. And this is when, as a father, you have time to unwind after being out of the house, gone all day, running around. And this is why it's also so toxic for us to pigeonhole everybody into having the exact same role. There's like a pressure on dads, do the dishes now. Like, I just went to work for 9 hours. I'm not going to do the dishes, like, unless there's some sickness or emergency. It's okay to say that as a father, as like a non-emasculated man. You should be saying that. And obviously, when there's a pregnancy and you're, late in your pregnancy, or the just given birth, or you're not feeling well, or there's some exigency, then of course you have to do those things as a father. But in the ordinary stream of events, it's like, no, you work 9-10 hours outside the home, at a high intensity job where I can't just get 20 minutes here to take like a nap or to watch TV. Like, so I have to take my time all at once to recreate and relax. So that's that. Like, that's your time as a dad to take your time to do what you need to do and not get burnt out. So father's time to relax, turn on the TV, perhaps, do something that he wants to or needs to do. So yeah, fathers recreate in one chunk, mothers get to recreate more sporadically.
And so that shouldn't be seen as something to be resentful of. For women, don't be resentful when your husband is relaxing. You should want them to be relaxing and recovering from their day at work.
I resent even having to say that. Like, it's like, that's how far we've been carried away by the toxic current, is that now all sexual distinction in role and differentiation is looked at askance when it shouldn't be. The fact is, we're different. We do different things during the day, so our schedule is going to be different. And I'm not going to be taking on like domestic chores that are unnecessary and are not related to my vocation as father. Although every man should know how to do all these things in a pinch. That's another thing that needs to be said. But in a pinch, truly in a pinch.
There are different ways of being self-sacrificial. Obviously, they pertain to your certain roles as husband and wife and mother and father in completely different ways. And that's just lost in our culture.
So bathing cycles after that, you generally, if you have a big household, one thing you run into is your water does not hold out. Your hot water doesn't hold out. Yeah. So you have to kind of spread the baths and showers over the course of the night so your water has time to replenish. So that means older kids shower last, because they stay up later. This is just a fact of life. And you need to have, a water heater that's going to be able to replenish itself so that not everyone's having to take lukewarm or cold showers. Also important, a life hack: don't get an electric water heater, have a gas one, because they replenish the water supply a lot faster than electric ones do. The gas water heaters heat up a lot faster. So if you do have a big family, even if you have like a 50-gallon, or I think there's bigger than 50. If you have a big tank, it's still insufficient for like 6 kids. So get a gas water heater. Important life hack. You're welcome. Um, it- so there's a couple hacks with bathing too, by the way. Um, Mothers and fathers have time to play with and talk to their kids. So use bath time. Bath time is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a time where kids can relax. Baths are inherently relaxing. Warm water and like good bubble bath, nice smell, um, soothing yellow, soft light coming from the bathroom light. Really important stuff. This is a way to spoil your kids in a sense without them getting spoiled. There's certain ways parents spoil their kids is by getting them too much, which is really toxic. You don't want to get your kids too many toys. They're forgetting what they have. Too many clothes. They're forgetting what they have. Those are bad ways to spoil your kids. What you can indulge your kids in that they don't even know they're getting spoiled is small things like bedding, like making them a nice bath. So using like a really nicely scented bubble bath. Scent is so closely tied to memory, and it's so closely tied to beauty, that if you're indulging, if you have the means and you get like a more upscale bubble bath to use for your kids, like as a more luxurious scent, then they're going to remember that. It's going to make a difference. It's going to leave them even feeling like softer and more refreshed after the bath. Like I put bath salts in. So I run my kids' bath pretty much every night. I like doing it. And, I'll get a higher end bubble bath or put bath salts in so my kids can really like relax. My little kids, the toddlers, can really relax in there and use it as a time to, like I said, that goes for bedding also, by the way. Get them soft sheets. So bed is really a time of pleasure and enjoyment for them, where they can drift off being cozy and really unwind and prepare for the next day. They won't know they're getting spoiled in those ways. So you're not going to be corrupting their character the way it really does for them to have like way too many toys. But you'll still be showing your affection through material giving as a parent in a wholesome way. But you also play with your kids in the bath. So that's another little hack, because if you didn't have as much time as you'd like to play with your kids during the day because of a busy day, use bath time to play with them. Have bath toys. Bath toys are fun. Kids are naturally, at a more playful time in the bath. They think it's neat. They're having a good time. They play with their toys. You can play with them in the bath. And that way you're killing two birds with one stone, and you're being efficient with your time. It's a really good idea. Another hack, like when your kids are in the bath, if they're just playing on their own for a little bit, it's a good time to clean up your bathroom. It's a good time. Keep some Comet in there, clean the toilet. Toilets are one of the problem areas for big families. Little kids don't tend to be the cleanest necessarily, even if you teach them like good grooming habits, good hygiene. Little boys like myths and whatnot in the toilet. So it's one of those problem areas. So you should be doing regular maintenance of your toilets to keep an orderly home. And one time to do that is when they're in the bath. You can be talking to them and like scrubbing your toilet bowl or wiping down your bathroom counter and sink at the same time. And again, you're killing two birds with one stone. So it's a life hack. And a lot of people just don't do it. Like you have to be in the bathroom with your kids when they're bathing, when they're under like 7, 6, or so, just for safety, because water is dangerous. So might as well use your time efficiently while you're there and do as much as you can. Baths aren't just about baths. Again, it's a time to shake off the rigors of the day and really relax. So don't treat them just in a perfunctory way. Treat them as an opportunity to for enjoyment, for growing closer, for playing, for all of these things.
It is a really fun time too. I will say that when our kids were very little, they always looked forward to bath time. We always looked forward to bath time. But also when when you're having more kids and the kids are getting older, a lot of times I'll feel like I didn't have enough time today to play with the younger kids. Because especially if you're doing homeschool, it takes up a lot of time. You might have a lot of disciplinary things to deal with some of the older kids or even the younger kids. Maybe your potty training, that takes up a lot of time. These things pile up. And then at bath time, it's kind of time, well, okay, I have to be in here with my little kids. This is a wonderful time to spend playtime with them. So use that time. Don't just think of it as, oh, I got to get my kids clean, hurry up, get them in bed. I've got to hurry and do all these things. And it's not just about getting them clean. And just like, it's not just about having a meal. It's not just about going to sleep. All of these things that we're talking about that you have to do during your day, they're opportunities to spend with your kids, to really spend time with your kids and do what needs to be done. So bath time is important playtime.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So after that, kids are going to be going through like their bathing cycles. Again, we talk about the importance of hygiene. That's one of those things that you teach your kids in, as part of their education. So we'll talk about that later too. But yeah, don't skimp on the hygiene stuff in order to move on past your day. It's really important. It's part of showing respect for the body and for getting in good habits and even preparing them for a vocation, because people who don't have good hygiene are going to have a much harder time with courtship and whatnot. It's just a fact. So it's not really something you skimp on. But once you've gotten through all of these, like, shower cycles, bathing cycles, then you can kind of settle in and do the final activities of family for the night, which should be playing games, watching TV, playing video games, rough house, something of that nature where you're spending quality family time together, even talking about something more in depth. These are all good things to do together, and it should be like the capstone event for each night as a family. You should be spending, like, doing one activity together as a family. And that's when you get that in. So 9 p.m., kids' bedtime, important time. Another underrated time. You have to grab these intimate times together as they come along, because in family life, it is so busy. You do have to really put effort into the times where they are set apart for your family. Bedtime is one of those things. It's an important time to show your kids affection, to play with them with their stuffed animals, do like a little show for them with one of their friends, make their little stuffed animal friend talk to them. Read a bedtime story to them, make them feel cozy, tuck them in, give them a hug and a kiss. And of course, say bedtime prayers together as a family. And set them up so they are it should be a mini paradise. Pius XII calls it the paradise of childhood. And it should be like that. You're going to have so many rigors and difficulties as a grown-up that childhood should be preparing you for that, and even giving you something to look back fondly upon to help you get through more difficult times when you are a grown-up. You're supposed to use periods of consolation to get through periods of desolation in the spiritual life. And childhood, it's like a constant period of consolation. And that's how it should be treated. And it's something that is preparing you for the difficulties ahead. So that means you have to dedicate yourself to making this nice for your kids, to giving your kids the paradise of childhood that they deserve. Have a neat nightlight. Have a music box that they're playing. Have mothers singing to their kids, scratching their backs. We put on, gentle music for our kids as they drift off to sleep. Oftentimes like Frank Sinatra or the Rat Pack, or I think Celtic Woman is in right now, or Peter, Paul and Mary, or Simon and Garfunkel, something like that, soft, soothing. And you're also teaching them a little bit about, culture, about, Western music at that point. And they're learning these songs, they're refining their tastes. It can be a really positive time. Do not squander it. I mean, don't just say, a lot of parents, I've seen it. Families are just like, good night. Then kids go get in bed. Don't tuck them in. No adieu. They might say a prayer, but then kids are just in bed, and it's not some special production. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's a wasted opportunity. That's squandering these really important times.
Yeah. You don't want to be the kind of family where the parent says, okay, it's 9 o'clock. it's bedtime, and then maybe you give your kids a hug goodnight out in the living room and then send them off to bed and say, okay, good night, go get in bed. You don't want to do that. That's not how bedtime should be at all. Like Dave was saying, it's really important to do these soothing things for your kids. It's a time of really of showing them affection. This is a really big time of that, of showing them affection. Whether it's giving them hugs and kisses, tucking them in physically in their beds, scratching their backs. My daughters always are telling me how much they like when I do that and sing to them lullabies. We have a lot of times we will sing lullabies to the baby of the family or the toddler of the family, to get them soothed and put them to sleep. And the older children like to help to do that. It's a time to bond as a family. It's a time for siblings to bond too. It's a really special time, and it should be.
Sure. So then once the kids are in bed, parents have an opportunity to actually spend one-on-one time, which is, again, underrated. A lot of people don't think about this, but you can't just, never get a chance to talk with your spouse one-on-one. It can't always be through the filter and medium of having the children around. It's important to dedicate time to your marriage also, and to having that, one-on-one relationship that you have. So get ready for the next day. Iron, outfits ready, lesson plan, talk. But then, this is your time as parents to watch something together, talk, play a game together, and just relax. So, don't try and do too much after you put the kids to bed. Obviously, there are certain things you're going to have to do to get the house ready for the next day and to care for yourself. I was like last night doing push-ups. Once my kids were in bed, it is a time for that, but you don't want it to be solely duty bound. You also want it to be a time where you are just having a chance to recreate with your spouse.
Yeah.
But yeah, then of course, watch TV, read, relax, right before bed, all those things that you need to do to keep yourself afloat, whatever they are. 10:30, 11, go to sleep. So make your examination of conscience, pray, yada, yada. Weekends, Saturdays are good for obviously chores, errands, hobbies, outings, getting together with friends, relatives, and spending time as a family. Saturdays, unfortunately, going to be for parents a lot of times a work day where I've spent the week, keeping the house from falling apart. Saturday, if something has broken in the house, you have to fix it. You have to cut your lawn. You have to get ready for the next week. I wish it were, and kind of pop culture makes us think that weekends, you just kind of do whatever you want, do nothing. But the day of true relaxation is obviously Sunday. Saturdays, you're still preparing, and it's still a bit of a work day, unfortunately. It would be nice if you had that time to just completely relax and regenerate. But that's really what Sundays are for. So errands, going to the hardware store, running to the grocery store, those are good tasks to take care of on Saturday. Saturday night, hopefully you'll have time to get together with friends that you've been missing during the week, and of course to keep spending time as a family, doing maybe even a more in-depth family activity than would be possible on a weeknight.
And I think this might be even more important for fathers or for husbands, is to get those things done in the house or around the house that they couldn't get to during the week because they're so busy with work and things like that. Like you have your more odd jobs around the house where you're fixing things that or you're outside, taking care of the lawn, or fixing something around the house, or washing the car or something like that. I have memories of my father spending Saturdays, outside doing the outdoor chores, washing the windows outside, getting to clean out the gutters or whatever it is that fathers need to do to take care of the house in those ways. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sundays, day of rest and recreation and prayer. Non-necessary servile work is obviously sinful. The church has a long history and tradition of what qualifies as servile work. You guys should look that up. You can actually write on Sundays. This goes back to the church's tradition. You'll see it in like the moral theology handbooks. But yeah, you do not want to be doing work on Sundays that is non-necessary and servile, and it can even be a mortal sin if you do enough work where it rises to the point of making a Sunday a day of work and not rest. God gives us Sunday for us precisely because, as you can see, you need to recuperate from the busy week. And if you are doing your job and your duty as a family during the week, you're going to need Sunday. And Sunday should be the day your kids look forward to the most, because they know you're going to be together and have time to relax basically all day. It should be a time where you are after church doing things as a family, getting a treat as a family, things of that nature. So and enjoy doing whatever it is you want to do on Sunday. That is going to help you to relax and prepare for the next day. Also, use it as a time to be contemplative about like the divine mysteries and things pertaining to the faith and prayer. Okay. Well, we've gone pretty long already, so I think we'll cut it here. We're about at the end. Normally we'd have a discussion time, but because we have gone a bit over, apologies. We'll end things there. Thank you for being with us for week 3. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. The main thing is, no matter what you do, no matter what schedule is going to pertain to your family and it works well with your family, you have to do each thing deliberately, consciously. It's not enough to just float through your day and to not have any idea of what you want to do and have a plan for accomplishing your goals. You should always have a plan for, what each day you need to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish that. There should be order. There should be a method to your madness. And as long as you're doing things deliberately and infusing them with love and remembering that the tasks are about more than just the tasks, but they're actually ordered towards the well-being of your family, then things are going to be okay. But do think things through. Do have an idea of what you want to do and how you're going to do it, and know that what you're doing is forming your family and your kids.
Yeah, and remember that you are putting into practice those Christian principles that we've already laid out, in the first couple classes. So the goal is to inculcate those Christian principles in your daily lives. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Thanks so much. We'll see everybody next week. God bless.